Ladies and gentlemen, this is Internet Personality Vangelus here with a look at the thing that drew a bunch of us into looking at Tenkai Knights back when they came out in 2013. While the minifigure bricks caught my eye, it was the Tenkai Titans that made me want to get hands-on with these things. And since chronology is a great way to get me to procrastinate on reviewing anything, I'm gonna just go face first into the second wave of Tenkai Titans by taking a look at Leidendor and Valorn, the blue and green protagonists that complete the basic foursome. This second wave of Titans appears to have caught up with Japan's versions of the first wave and look far more dynamic and show accurate in their head and chest sculpts. But let's dial things back for a second and begin by looking at blocks. Bricks, blocks. They do that thing they're supposed to do. And they do it pretty well. It's fairly tight. So these two big chunks of buildable brick are supposed to work with leading brands, and I find if you take a piece of a leading brand and jam it down on here, it works pretty well. The fit's pretty good, it's not too loose, it's fairly tight. Sometimes that piece stays on there when I take it off. But these things serve a very specific purpose, which is that they transform. And they've got a lot of lock-in points all over the place, so that when they're in this block form, they don't really come apart all that easily. Like right there, there's a couple pegs that go into the holes that are in every single stud on this ionic system. But yeah, this transformation is, it's pleasant, man. It's simple, but leads to a pretty good looking skeleton, as you'll see very shortly. And there are a lot of ball joints involved, and on the knees there are some soft detented ratchet style joints. And then there's like this interesting like angular jigsaw connection to hold those bits together. And then you can have these huge heels if you want, or you can fold them up. I think this looks better. And then, yo, it's got a bit of a freaky face, but now we've got this little Ionics man, this little Titan skeleton, who's a little bit taller than a Mixel. And it's, I used the word before, but the size is also quite pleasant. His posability is decent. His head does really nothing. It can nod, thanks to the transformation. But it's on this tiny little connecting bar here, so I feel like the way this is currently designed, it was explained by someone from Ionics on Twitter that there's just no way to fit a swivel in there, and I think that you could fit one in there if you did a slight redesign of this whole thing and allowed for enough space for some kind of, say, Technic peg. But nonetheless, there's no neck rotation, there's no waist joint either. Once again, this is like a very thin piece, so something would need to change, I think, overall in the construction of this to add in a waist joint there. His shoulders are ball joints with fairly good range. There's a lot of openness to the cupping apart of this ball socket. And the tightness also feels pretty good. It's not too loose, it's not clicky tight, it's not squeaking. His elbows have got some extremely soft detents to the point where they aren't really detenting. That's just adding some friction. His hips are ball jointed just like his arms, or his shoulders, sorry. His knees have got detents, but these are not soft. These have got, they're silent, a little bit buttery, but they've got some definite click, except that the clicks are not so heavy and so far apart that they really mess with anything. It just means that you've got a very solid leg. And then the ankles have got a ball joint, and yeah, the ball socket stability on these little guys is one of the first things that really leapt out at me as a sign of this does not feel like some kind of Lego knockoff the way I was kind of expecting it to when I first picked one of these up. Apparently, again, according to this Tenkai Knights social media rep who showed up not only on Twitter, but also on TFW 2005, of all places, to engage with a bunch of us last year, apparently a lot of the development time spent on this Tenkai Knight stuff was spent on plastic tolerances, and that's really nice to see, because if there's one massive bummer about kre-o, another transformation, well, not quite as directly transformation involved, but something that works with leading brands and involves stuff that goes from form to form, kre-o's plastic tolerances at times can be the worst. So these guys have a minor victory in how, as toys, they feel solid, and they're, you know, they can take it. They can, get out of the way, dude. You don't want to be here for this. They can take a couple head-first dives and they feel fine. You can bang them together and nothing's wrong. Like, here, his chest folded up. There, I fixed it. So, the base skeleton of these dudes, are pretty fun. In fact, they're almost a little too, well, I wouldn't say too fun, but you mess around with this skeleton a whole lot, and you're like, alright, time to armor him up. And then stuff gets maybe a little bit crowded. Let's take a look at how that goes. Both Tenkai Titans come with a healthy pile of bits to armor up, bulk out, and take on more familiar silhouettes. These pieces attach quite solidly, as Ionix managed to suss out the works with leading brands plastic tolerance formula a lot better than kre-o did. Bipedal Tenkai Titans tend to have the same parts attachment pattern, with chest plates and two-part capes as a standard loadout, but their heads and chests are fully unique, and so are a lot of the other parts, to be honest. Leidendor's an elven azure fellow with a lot of swept lines and smooth curves, and man, such a tasty blue color palette. Valorn, meanwhile, is Kappa in just about every way. He's got a turtleish feel to all his armor pieces, he's two kinds of green, and his cape straight up looks like a friggin' shell. Unfortunately, all this armor adds bulk and squat to the Titan block skeleton, and the shoulder poseability is hindered hardcore. On the bright side, the legs are surprisingly unhindered. And apparently the Titan helmet peg is meant to allow for a bit of left and right swivel wiggle. Sadly, this isn't something to count on for poseability. In fact, most of the time, if you want them to look like they're looking left and right, you can just take the helmet off and lay it down in place. Larger Tenkai Knight sets all come with a weapon block gimmick piece, basically a brick of some sort that transforms for the sake of battle. Leidendor's cheats a little with its separate arrow piece plugging into place, but it does have a lot of moving parts to end up looking like a big blue bow. As for Valorn, his weapon block keeps things pretty simple and just becomes a quad-barreled cannon for wrecking a fool's day. The peg connections in the Titan's palms look a bit too open, but do a really good job of gripping the handle of whatever they're handed. Some mathematics happen there, ladies and gentlemen. The Tenkai Titan remains an impressive concept for a first showing from Spinmaster's Ionix line. While the end result suffers from a lack of head poseability and an overall cluttered feel to its armor form's upper body, there is a lot of potential in this transforming, leading brands compatible chunk of brick. The basic build quality is pretty solid, especially given the stigma found in many non-LEGO competitors in the brick world. I mostly wish there had been some kind of intended integration with Leidendor's minifigure in the instruction book. I mean, as it is, you can stick it wherever you want, but a space in the core of the chest would have been so perfect. And overall, I really hope to see Spinmaster get some talented builders on their staff to draw out the full build potential of shape-shiftable bricks and present it to the masses. Certainly it lies with the buyer to play with a construction toy and discover neat things like spaceship modes for the Titan blocks, but a lesson to learn from LEGO is to present some smart and clever build ideas in the on-shelf product itself, to draw out and teach those tricks to the buyer base rather than leave those tricks buried and to be discovered by hypothetical superfans. Easy example, LEGO has a lot of sets with studs not on top builds in the instruction book. I wouldn't know what that is if I hadn't bought sets that just spoon-fed it to me. I'm also eager to see the slightly less squat Tenkai Titans that debuted at this year's Toy Fair. Those already show some evolution in build ideas from the designers themselves and made me optimistic about the future of this line once pictures came out. Anyway, this has been Internet Personality Vangelus, and we'll definitely be returning to the Knights of Tenkai sooner than later, once I get my package from Japan. You know, for research.